Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Michaela Peters. Today I want to try doing an experiment because I realized that my page and monetization has grown exponentially while I'm recording these videos in Finland, and right now I'm not in Finland, but I'm going to try making a video about Finland while not in Finland and just name it something with Finnish in the title to conduct an experiment as to whether that is going to result in more traffic with this particular video. So let's try that. I will disclaim this with today's a little bit stressful because now my parents are starting to get on me about, you're moving in 3 months, so you need to start packing your entire room now and all your books in the background. And I'm just like, until the apartment I'm going to move into is actually ready, why can't I just move the stuff over there? But you have to put it all in boxes. But I don't really want to put my whole room in boxes while I'm still living in it. Whatever. So that's what's going on today, and I'm just a little bit annoyed. And there's a lot going on this month. I have to eradicate the laziness. I don't know how to explain this. I've been being really lazy because I've been sick, and I'm finally feeling kind of better, and I need to work on some things for my PhD that are due soon, so I need to do that. But anyway, today I want to talk about Finnish versus US salaries, because actually not salaries, I did a video on that already. Getting a job, this is what I want to talk about, not the salaries. Although I have been thinking a lot about if I'm making half the amount in Finland, but at the same time I'm getting a bunch of benefits that are worth a ton of money in the US, then does it even actually make sense to continue working in the US? And as long as I don't have gaps in my employment, if I show that I'm fully employed in Finland, then maybe that's actually not so bad for getting a job in the US at some point. I'm not sure, but I was thinking about that this morning because of just thinking about low-key how miserable I am being in the US and how much I still don't want to pay $2,000 a month in rent when I could literally pay a quarter of that in Finland. So that's what's going on with my thoughts today. But I wanted to talk about my experience with getting jobs in Finland versus getting jobs in the US because I think this could be interesting for at least one person. And the processes are kind of different as far as the application process goes, but as far as applying online versus word of mouth, in Finland they call this the hidden job market, I honestly see no difference between the US and Finland. What is more commonly referred to as nepotism, or getting a job basically through people that you know or connections that you have, I would say is just as dominant in both of these countries. The only instances I can think of is in the US with the US government. It can be pretty hard to get a job with the US government through nepotism. My job at NASA was not through nepotism, even though my connection to NASA was through nepotism because it was through a family friend. I went and shadowed people at NASA and I visited NASA before I applied to NASA. However, me getting into NASA was completely independent of this family friend. Okay, so now what I want to talk about is how these different job applications look. I did talk about this in another video, but the US is very into affirmative action, so you're always having to fill out the do you have a disability kind of thing. Whereas, and what your demographics are, Hispanic, not Hispanic, Black, white, Asian, what else is on there? I don't know. Some other ones, there's 5 of them. Native American Pacific Islander, that's another one on there, I think. So you're having to put that stuff in. You can kind of just not answer it, but it's always in there. I don't recall seeing these things in Finnish job applications. However, I have heard that there is discrimination where if you don't have a very Finnish looking name, then it's kind of what? But apparently my name looks kind of Swedish, so don't know. But then you also have to disclose whether you speak Finnish or not, so there is that. Okay. Now, in terms of that sort of stuff, it's different, but one of the things I found very time intensive or annoying, to be very honest, about applying for jobs in Finland was that they're really into cover letters. So it's every single job that you apply for, you have to write a 1-page cover letter, which obviously takes some time. In the US, this is not a thing, at all not a thing. Also, the difference between CV versus resume, and the reality is they're basically the same thing. So I did apply for so many positions in Finland and did these independent CVs, and it was a lot of work. And I did get one job interview. They had 6 candidates. it got down to me and one other person, and they ended up going with the other person. And I was so upset because this was right before I actually started liking La Padranta. So I'll be very honest in saying the first year and a half I was in La Padranta, I kind of low-key hated it. I hated how close-knit everybody was and how the public transportation didn't really work. I felt like I didn't have enough autonomy, I think is what it was. Whereas I was used to living in bigger cities and kind of like going out and doing my own thing and feeling sufficiently stimulated by all the sensory activity around me and not feeling like I needed like people interactions. In La Padranta, I felt more starved for people interactions, and then I got really close with people, and as I've discussed in a lot of my other videos, for me this is like not good. So I was super wanting to get out of La Padranta. So like as much as I'm like, oh, I love La Padranta now, was not always the case. And I remember I had this Russian roommate at the time, and I told her about the situation. She's like, don't worry, it just means you'll have a better opportunity. And I'm thinking like, well, what the heck is this better opportunity? And there was one. So I had gone to Slush, and so this is now the out of the traditional trajectory with applying for jobs, and now we're talking about the hidden job market. I went to Slush, I connected with a bunch of people on LinkedIn, I followed up with some people also in Helsinki. I really wanted to work for like this one like space related company. It was like a contractor for ESA, I think, like the European Space Agency, but he kind of ended up ghosting me. And there was some other like tech firm that ended up ghosting me, even though I was trying to pitch different ideas for them. But they're like, what do you want to write your thesis on? Because I was looking specifically for a master's thesis worker position, because those are pretty common in Finland, and it is notoriously difficult for international students to get this. But I was like, no, I'm gonna get it because A, I want the work experience, B, I want the money, obviously. So both of these things were motivating me. So finally, the only one that I was successfully able to get a job with was this little tiny company in La Padranta called Elster, which I like to think that I actually did help them, but I don't really know. They did end up like coming to the U.S. Embassy. I didn't necessarily have anything to do with that, but I did go there and took a day off of work to support that. So it was very nice of me using my PTO to do that back when I barely had. I still don't have a lot of PTO. And yeah, like I just showed up. I pitched some idea. He was like, cool. I did a thesis for them. Did some market research. Cool. I don't know. Writing a thesis was hard, man. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just felt like I couldn't focus, and it was like the winter depression time, and who knows if I'd gone to Helsinki if it would have been better. But whatever. This was during the time when I had my little lunch rotation going on, because I decided I needed to like force myself to like interact with people because I was getting too isolated. But yeah. And they did pay me like the minimum salary they were allowed to pay me, but better than nothing. And I didn't have to like move all my crap to Helsinki, which was cool. So that worked out. Like, it could have been worse, whatever. But yeah, it was like literally just me following up on LinkedIn with people, and that was how I got my job. It wasn't through an application. It was just because I was the squeaky wheel that got the grease. I don't know that I've necessarily had an instance like that in the US. My first internship was through my grandmother's client. My grandmother's a hairdresser, and I worked for an actuary in a small office and also did some market research. And my job at the restaurant I've now had for 10 years. I also got through my mom's it was my mom's friend from, where the heck was this friend from? I don't know if they went to beauty school together or something, and she was working at the restaurant, and then that's how I got a job there, and I've stayed there ever since. Now, my other professional jobs, like NASA, was not nepotism, that was applying. My current job, that was applying. But that's what I loved about, like, when I got my current job, it was like, I just literally sent a bunch of applications, and it wasn't like I had to do this fancy cover letter thing. So this is one of the things I'm super afraid of with, like, trying to get a job in Finland. I'm like, I don't want to do this cover letter thing all over again, and I'm totally the person where, unless I had a job lined up, I would not leave my job, because I don't like having gaps in employment. I've explained this a lot. A, it is bad for you being able to get rehired. B, it just makes me go crazy. I don't know. I don't like it. It stresses me out. I still have some tea because I'm still sick. Okay, so I'm not sure really if I have anything else to add to this, but to be honest, I feel like the process is similar enough, minus the whole cover letter nonsense that I really don't like. And nepotism feels about the same, definitely an option in both places. And I don't know. I do feel a little bit more scared maybe of interviewing in Finland. Like, I don't know how to do it as much because Americans are taught to like brag about themselves a lot, but in Finland they value humility a lot more. So I don't know. Like, maybe that's where I went wrong sometimes. I don't know. There's this whole cultural barrier around work, like the workplace that I don't know as much about in Finland that is way easier for me in the US. Like, I've spent already, you know, like more than 10 years. Like, I'm 29, and when I was 16 I started working in a restaurant as a hostess. So I've spent like 13 years of my working life working in the US, at least periodically. You know, even when I was abroad for like 9 months at a time, I'd still come back and end up working in the US. So yeah, I do like that Finnish people are way more chill though. Or even when I worked in Armenia, they'd go for like 2-hour lunches. That's not a thing in the US. So sometimes I do be like, you know, is this really what I want? And I ask myself that most days. So that's everything I have for today. I'm going to see how this experiment goes with whether it gains any traction, because I do feel like YouTube is like, you're not in Finland, so we're not going to circulate this, but I could be wrong. Alright, so until my next video, bye.